recorded live.
It's Late Night JengaJam with your host, J.G. Edithel. Tonight, Rooster Teeth's Grand Poobah, Burnie Burns, takes questions from the Let's Figure This Out group, featuring This Week in Geek with Oboe Crazy, and I'm your announcer, Roadblock. And here's your host, J.G. Edithel.
Thank you so much, Roadblock. This is J.G. Edithel. We're talking with Burnie Burns, co-creator of Red vs. Blue, who just wrapped up, just displayed the last episode of the latest season of Red vs. Blue. We have the Let's Figure This Thing Out group to talk to him. We're going to open up lines for a little while. It's going to be reserved for members of LFTO to call in to ask their questions otherwise. But if we go in after a certain amount, we'll open up calls, and the number will be 1-724-444-7444, and the call ID is 6478. Now, I should point out that if we do run into issues with the TalkShoe chat window, there is a secondary one we have available at JengaJam.ning.com. Some of us will remember that as our old, client for, our old social networking group that we left onto the side. But we have a chat client there, so worst case scenario, if this thing freezes up, we'll be fine. But first, as always, we have the lovely, the amazing, the talented Oboe Crazy doing a little something we call This Week in Geek. How are you, Oboe?
I'm doing good. I'm keeping This Week in Geek short and sweet, by request. First, from Team Sniper, I really wish Australia would just make up its mind. A little while back, we reported that the land down under had banned Left 4 Dead 2 in September because of what they called, quote, excessive violence, end quote. Then they re-reviewed a re-edit of the game in early October and decided to grant it an MA+15 rating, which would allow it to be released and purchased. And now, back to being banned. Basically for the same reason it was banned before. Sorry, Aussie zombie-killing fans, look like you have to break the law if you want to enjoy Left 4 Dead 2. Next, from The Skiz, a little internet nostalgia for you. Yesterday, Yahoo closed down GeoCities, deciding to no longer offer free web hosting in any form. GeoCities officially shut down yesterday afternoon, October 27th, and was one of the oldest free hosting sites on the web. For us old-timers, I'd like to say, good night, sweet GeoCities, and flights of pings sing thee to thy rest. Finally, proof that no one can resist the awesomeness that is Samuel L. Jackson. A 22-year-old Norwegian man was stopped at customs and arrested because he was trying to bring snakes on a plane. Okay, no, actually it was a ferry, but still, snakes on a large public transport vehicle. He was caught by Norwegian customs carrying a tarantula, 14 royal pythons, and 10 albino leopard geckos taped to his body. Customs found the tarantula first, then decided to give him a full body search that revealed 14 stockings, one for each snake, taped around his torso. Better yet, when the man dropped his pants, the officer found 10 cans taped to each of his legs, each containing a lizard. Yes, folks, he was hiding a lizard in his pants. Why am I telling you this? Not just because any time I can reference Samuel L. Jackson is a good time, but because I like to give our chat listeners plenty of reasons to say, that's what she said. That's all for This Week in Geek. I'm Oboe Crazy, and you will fear
Whoa, there is a dragon somewhere in the chat. But we'll deal with that in a bit. The world is indeed a strange place. If you have a fact you want read live and on the air, the website to go to is www.redvsblue.com/obocrazy, or check out our website at JengaJam.net. But hey, without further ado, we have Burnie Burns, co-creator of Red vs. Blue, voice of Church, and several other characters, having just wrapped production on the RvB recreation season. Burnie, how you doing, man?
Good, how are y'all doing?
We're doing pretty good. We got Let's Figure This Thing Out. We had them on JengaJam a couple of weeks ago. They're sort of dedicated towards unraveling the mysteries of the various RvB seasons. In the room right now, we have the Recreator.
Hi.
And I believe the other one we had unmuted was Daft Prodigy.
Hello.
Hey, how are y'all doing?
Not all at once, guys.
Sorry, I just realized that I didn't have my Word file open. I should probably get the list of questions pulled up.
No problem. I have the list anyway. I'm going to go through it pretty much. If I see someone in the room, I'll unmute them. Otherwise, I'll read the question myself, and we'll have Burnie answer it pretty much. All these questions come from the Let's Figure This Thing Out group. I'd like to thank them and the Recreator for working with me on this, and it was a joy to just sort of get this thing back and forth, and kind of cool to have one of those, creator meets fan kind of interaction moments like we had a couple of years ago with ATS. So, Burnie, you ready?
Yeah. Hey, Jenga, did you know that the iPhone corrects JengaJam to KenyaJam? Were you aware of that?
Oh boy, the iPhone is on to me. I was not born in Northeast Philadelphia, as I've been telling everyone. I was, in fact, born in a village in Kenya. So
we need a birth certificate. I'm going to be one of the Jenga birthers, I think, from now on. Steve Jobs hasn't lied to me yet. I don't see why he'd start now.
This is Jeff. I've been secretly on here waiting to second the Jenga birther movement.
God. Oh boy, this is gonna make my. That doesn't burn my curry, but it does boil my Kenyan blood. So, oh lordy. All right, first question is from Buckeye Don, who I believe is in the room. Buckeye, you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead and ask your question. I'm sure you have it on you.
Good evening, Burnie. Thanks for taking the time out to chat with us here for a little bit.
No problem. Hey, Buckeye, are you from Ohio?
Yes, I am.
You know, I went up to Columbus like 3 years ago when Texas played Ohio State. And I assume you're a Buckeyes fan if your name is Buckeye Don.
Oh, huge, diehard, lifelong. And it's,
we had
a few games against you guys.
What's that?
Yeah, we had a few games against you guys in the last number of years.
Yeah, that was fun. That's probably the most beautiful stadium I have ever been in my entire life.
Thank you.
Except Texas won that game. Ohio State won the game in Austin, but we won the game in Columbus. And I think I nearly got in 4 fights on my way back to the car. So it was
only 4?
Yeah, it was a beautiful stadium, but a little bit rough of a parking lot.
Yeah, they do get a little boisterous down there. I've never had the privilege of being able to go to the Horseshoe down there and watch a game yet.
Oh man, it's beautiful.
But it is on my one of my must things to do.
I've never seen a stadium with stained glass before. but they take football seriously in Ohio.
Oh, very, very, very seriously. Ohio, Texas, Florida, California are like the 4 states that really take their, especially high school football, seriously.
Well.
But it's my first question I have for you is on some of the personal nature. That I also own a small business, and I remember what it was like when I went in and fired my boss and went out on my own to start my own business. I was going like, what the fuck did I just do? And there was a number for about 2 years there. I'd wake up on days and going, what have you done? Do you actually know what you're doing? What was it like when you fired your boss? And do you still go through those moments where you're wondering, what am I doing here?
Well, that's a really good question. Because the unseen half of what I do is running the business and running a small company that's now got 8 employees that work in that office, and they have health insurance and 401k and all that stuff. And it's a hell of a lot of administration. That I talk about some of that. If you guys ever listen to the Drunk Tech, I talk about some of that. How healthcare's come up, and I'm always amazed that we think in this country that healthcare should go with your job. It's just something we accept, but there's a whole level of administration that's put on small business owners that we have to be healthcare providers, and you have to make sure that on top of running your business that everybody in your company has healthcare and it's being managed properly. Otherwise, your employees can be left out in the cold. It's a hell of a lot of responsibility that just gets stuck on small business owners. But I worked at a company called Telenetwork, and I worked there for 13 years. And actually, by the time I left that company, I was the president of it. I've been president of it for about 4 years. And it was a great job. I would have never in a million years left that job if not for Red versus Blue. And the reason why I ended up leaving is that because Red versus Blue took so much time, or Rushi took so much of my concentration, I could not adequately do both jobs. It wasn't fair to either company to be running 2 companies. And it was more of a reality thing than anything. And I don't really regret firing my boss because I really like working for myself, but in a way, I almost think like, wow, I had such a good setup and I had so much opportunity at the same time. We'll see if over the course of a lifetime, if I used up, all my good opportunities in 1 decade. But I certainly hope that's not the case.
I'm pretty sure
that's what I did. I took advantage of an opportunity that I had to strike out on my own. It was one of those things that am I really going to go through this? And the one thing I would have regretted if I didn't try it.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
I was wondering about how other people go through that. Would you always regret not trying to go out on your own?
Oh, I think so, and I think the older you get, the harder it becomes, because you have more responsibilities. I know at every point in our lives, we think we have a ton of responsibilities, but if you look back 5 years, it seems like your life was always much simpler, and 5 years ago in the past at least, and I think that must continue as you get older. That it always feels like you have more obligations in your life. So you're always 5 years younger than you're going to be. That's the way I look at it. So take advantage of opportunities now while you can.
Thank you, Yogi Berra.
Yeah, you're always 5 years younger than you are 5 years from now.
And it's my second question is when did you decide to go with the story of the Alpha, and how long have you had that story going on? My guess is that you actually had this kind of story before you even started Red versus Blue, and I'm guessing that you took advantage of the situation to present your story.
The actual story of Alpha. So you're saying that I had the idea for the story and then just ended up using it for Red versus Blue? I didn't really thought about that. I guess so, because I've always been interested in kind of a literary device or a narrative device. I've always been very interested in. I just closed my laptop. That's not going to cut me off, is it? I hope not.
Nope.
Anyway, I've always been interested in like the 7 deadly sins, and there's definitely a part of that that's in the fragments of the AI, just the different aspects of your personality. So I guess in that way I'm using elements from that, but no, not really. I mean, I think really I get asked that about, especially after Reconstruction, I get asked a lot about when did I first think of it, of like, was it from the beginning of everything? And it was not. It was more once text started to enter the scene around episode 10 of Red versus Blue, we started to think more long term. So it was, from the point where we are now, yes, it was definitely at the beginning, but it really wasn't from day one in episode 1. It was more from halfway through season 1, I would say.
And so, what was it that made you actually decide to go with the story? I mean, when you realized that you could make Red versus Blue more than the 6 to 8 episodes that you'd planned.
Well, I think that the Red versus Blue story, the thing that we've always done well is that we've existed in a much larger universe in this kind of isolated little pocket where we get to do our own thing, and by that I mean the Halo universe. And I guess we had no ability to affect that larger universe, but I always like being in the corner of something bigger. And so we thought, well, let's do kind of our own bigger universe that we're part of. So that's where the whole freelancer AI experimentation, where that all came from, because it just kind of gave a place and a setting for these goofy idiot troopers that wasn't something that was totally beyond our control. And, we had to then, it kind of made a double job for us in that we had to write a storyline that was going on behind the scenes that met the requirements not only of the bigger universe that we were kind of creating, but also then met the requirements of the bigger universe, which is the Halo universe beyond it. So
Red versus Blue runs parallel with the Halo universe.
I don't know if I use the word fit in or parallel or anything like that, but it doesn't intentionally go out of its way to violate rules of that. And I guess a good example of that is we get to, try to use the best of both worlds of picking and choosing what we want to use from there. And for instance, in Recreation, Wash, when he's in prison, he's looking at a kind of a ticker tape of news.
Yes.
And that news is essentially from the Halo universe and our kind of idea of what would happen after the elites and the humans make peace. Like, what would be their rules? And I would think one of the rules would be that they have to collect Forerunner artifacts together. There's nothing to establish that in the Halo universe. But then that when you say something like that, that begs the question. So Recreation happens after Halo 3, and it's not. It's not before Halo 3, and it's not after Halo 3. It's just that's us bumping up against that much larger universe and being able to pick and choose when it gets to do that.
So while you might borrow some of the technology, it's still off by itself.
What's that?
It's still within it. But so you're not taking directly from Halo 3, but it's existing in the same universe in a sense. but way off by itself. Like I said, but it just rubs up against it, against it from time to time.
Right, and it's not, it's one of those things where, like I said, we're not trying to go out of our way to violate the rules of it, but we're also not trying to do anything that's Halo. Like, we're not trying to do anything that someone who's not infinitesimally familiar with the Halo story wouldn't understand what's taking place in Red vs. Blue. It's not really necessary. It certainly helps, and there are certainly some jokes that people would like more if they understood Halo. But we're not trying to be Halo, and I think that's one of the reasons why Red vs. Blue was appealing to Bungie and Microsoft at the beginning. We weren't trying to be a Halo story, we were just trying to do, something on the side. But at the same time, it's kind of fun to, I think, to just brush up against it, and touch on that universe a little bit. Because I love it so much, it's hard not to do it, especially when you're, you look like Halo and you walk like Halo, right?
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and I'll turn this back over to Rec and let somebody else get some questions in.
All right. Thanks for your questions, Buckeye.
Archer is next in line.
I embarrassed myself in the commentary. I was in the commentary for Recreation that we did. We were talking about the lights on the guys' suits, how they have lights at their elbows and lights at their knees. And I was commenting, like, why would they put lights on their knees? And one of our other guys pointed out to me, and I've read all the books and everything, one of the guys pointed out that's where their shields come from. It comes from those ports on their knees and on their elbows. No idea. So I get to embarrass myself on the DVD by not knowing something.
Well, we got LFTO Archer on the call. Archer with us?
Yep, I'm here.
Go ahead and ask your question, Archer.
All right, Burnie, you guys might remember me from the panel. I'm the one who gave you the LFTO shirts. And for those who weren't at PAX or haven't seen the videos on YouTube, the LFTO community, we got together and we bought, 2 of the shirts that we have for our community. We gave them to you guys. And my question was, a little lighthearted before you started getting hit really hard with all the hard questions, was to ask you who was able to get the shirts back to the office first, draw a target on, and who has the most bullseyes.
Okay, wait. Who is trying to get back? Who is trying to get where? Who got the shirt back first?
Yeah, who brought the shirts to the office, drew targets on them, and who has the most bullseyes on them, like throwing darts at the shirts and all that.
Yeah, no, on the shirt, actually, I look over all the elements of the story, and it's interesting to me that what people draw out as an important element of the storyline, and I've been looking a lot at that. I'm familiar with a lot of your names from the forum, from just browsing through there. I spent a lot of time in the LFTO thread during Reconstruction because that was, that Reconstruction was definitely the hardcore commitment to, we're going to do like kind of a larger story here, and so I spent a lot of time in there, and that's when when did the LFTO group come about?
After episode 4 of Reconstruction.
Of Reconstruction, okay.
Was our anniversary?
Yeah, because I've been on the site for 5 years since the beginning of October, and there was nothing ever like that, in the forums until episode 4 of Reconstruction.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would spend any time trying to figure out what a fucktard is. I don't think anybody was too concerned about that. But I think the name of the group is kind of interesting because, when I write something, and, anybody who makes something, you kind of have expectations or hope of how it's going to go or how it's going to be received. And you really, all you have is hope because, you don't have any control over that. And I think the name Let's Figure This Out is, I sometimes worry about that because I think the current sci-fi is weird because sci-fi seems to have blended with the mystery genre, that somehow just because something is sci-fi means it has to be a puzzle in a way, and I don't necessarily think that's the case. And I realize we did stuff in Reconstruction that had a twist nature to it, and that gives you the feeling that everything is always going to be kind of hidden, and it's your job kind of to figure out what's taking place. And that's not necessarily what we're doing. We certainly have some elements that are kind of behind the scenes, and for people who are paying closer attention, we're building stuff out. We have some characters, obviously, in Recreation that if we took just 1 or 2 lines and said, this is who this character is, it would make sense, but it's not important to the story, so we don't do that. But I know that people who follow the story can hear the name CT and kind of connect some dots and think that there's something more to that character. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it actually does. I was going to say, you did that in Recreation as well, even if you weren't aware of it. And there's the same thing with the shorts, actually. I really didn't expect them all to, fall into place other than having, just the random props in the back, or people walking, doing something that they did in a previous short or an upcoming short. And it seemed to, in a sense, come full circle from first episode to the last episode, which, I thought it was actually really interesting the way you guys did that. It was actually really cool.
Oh, thanks.
So.
That was actually, I think it was, I had the idea to have, like, guys walking through the background at the beginning of one, and then Matt kind of just ran with that through the course of the rest of the season. In fact, we kind of screwed ourselves a little bit because I don't know how closely you watched the shorts, but there's one where Gus had a stethoscope, and he came in one of the shorts, and we had to figure out a way to fit the stethoscope in later because there was going to be a short where Gus was our company nurse, and we put him in a little nurse's dress and put horrible makeup on him, and we ended up not doing that sketch because it was funny, so we had to find another use for the stethoscope.
And you get on the TV.
Can I say thank you for not doing that just right now?
It was pretty horrible. I mean, imagine Gus in a little white mini skirt if you can. I know I can, and it's probably why we didn't make it.
Oh man! All right. Well, I mean, that's it for me for now until we get into the heavy hitting stuff. So I don't know who.
On that note, we are kind of running a little late. It's 24 minutes into the call already, and.
Oh, no problem. We're going to go a little longer than usual this week, Bernie, if that's okay. But let's see. I'm on the mute. Archer, I think Prodigy's up next with their questions. I'll go ahead and introduce Prodigy. You're on Late Night JengaJam.
All right. Hello, Bernie. This is
Hey, how
Prodigy.
you doing?
You were talking earlier about Reconstruction sort of being a more plot-driven, twisty sort of series, and Recreation being a little lighter and more comedic. Are you planning on returning to Reconstruction's more dramatic storytelling, or are subsequent seasons going to be lighter from here on out?
Well, I have to kind of protest the word dramatic a little bit because that makes people think that Red vs. Blue is dramatic. Red vs. Blue is always comedic, I mean? It's just Reconstruction had a serious character, Washington, who was I'm assuming everyone has seen the end episode of Recreation here, by the way. He was brought in to be kind of blind to what's taking place in Red versus Blue. It was a way for the audience who hadn't seen, some of the earlier stuff, or maybe who picked it up in season 5 and didn't want to watch 5 seasons of Red versus Blue. A character like Wash is great because we can bring him in and we reintroduce all the characters through him, and that's part of the Reconstruction theme, is rebuilding the team, reconstructing the teams. And then he's their shepherd for a little while, and then he makes a switch and becomes a villain. To the events in Recreation. And I guess that when you ask me if it's going to be return to the serious nature, I'll say exactly what I said on the director's commentary for Recreation, which you haven't heard yet, and that is, if you liked Reconstruction, you will definitely like Resolution, because Resolutions will be much more in line with the way that Reconstruction was. Personally, I love Recreation, and I love the DVD, and I think it's great, and everyone should definitely buy it. But Reconstruction is by far my favorite thing that we have ever made at Rooster Teeth. We all like Reconstruction a lot, and I knew that we needed something in between Reconstruction and Resolution that would seem more like traditional Red versus Blue, and so that's why we did that. And it's also one of the reasons why I hired Gavin was so that I could spend time on Resolution and not be. Like, this is the first time we've ever finished a season of Red versus Blue and been done with the DVD, and I wasn't completely and utterly wasted creatively. And, have to take off like 2 or 3 months to just kind of recharge. But Gavin is, luckily, so I outsourced all of my burnout, is what that basically amounts to.
So I said that goes for all of us, actually, yeah.
Yeah. So it's good to be able to do that. And, Red versus Blue, it's kind of weird because there's been a little ebb and flow. If I look at Blood Gulch, my favorite seasons are 1, 3, and 5. And now, it's like we're following the same pattern again with this trilogy, with Recollection, which is what we call the whole thing. The whole trilogy is Recollection. And it's, Reconstruction, and the middle piece is Recreation, and then Resolution. I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to Resolution. And we're doing some stuff right now that you'll see next summer, and I don't think we've ever been working this far in advance on stuff that you're going to see in the next series.
Wow. Very cool. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for your call. And viva la resolución. But hey, our next caller. Thank you for the pity laugh. Our next caller is. Let me see if I say this name right. Drasser.
Yes.
Wow, I didn't butcher that, did I?
No, it's okay.
Well, go for it. You're on the JengaJam with Burnie.
All right, Bernie. Well, my question is, how did you get the names for the characters of the show? Because the only one that actually makes sense is Donut's name, Franklin Delano Donut, as a pun on FDR. Cool. And I just want to know how you got the names for the characters.
Well, does Delano Donut, does that make sense? Like, how do we get Donut from Roosevelt?
Well, that part doesn't matter to me.
Okay. Well, actually, the names Donut and Caboose are default names in Halo. And so if you join a game late, as Caboose and Donut did, they joined up in episode 3, you would get a default name from Halo. And so we thought, well, let's give these guys default names since they're coming in late. We'll give them names. And I think at one point, I think that Caboose's name was Walla Walla, because that was one of the names that you got. And then there was names like Danger, Walla Walla, Killer. They all these names associated with Halo. But then there was this funny like Donut and Caboose, and we just thought it was funny. In fact, I could not accept Caboose for the longest time. I don't know why, just because it was like it conjured such an image of a train, and But the idea that he was always the last car in the train and a little bit further behind just made sense.
Well,
and so yeah, that's why we named him. But other than that, it was just really just to name him, give him cool names. Tex was always going to have a guy's name, and originally the name was Dex. I always liked the name Dexter a lot because I used that in my first movie that I made, and so just as a filmmaker, you're like, oh, I'm going to have this running thing, and call Tex Dexter. But then that just moved into Tex because it seemed even more manly. Like a woman named Tex seemed kind of, that no one would see it coming is what I hoped, but people did a mile away. And then Griff and Simmons, I don't know. Griff I just came up with, and Simmons I thought was funny. We named him Dick, which is short for Richard, so his name is essentially Richard Simmons.
Well,
yeah, even and then Sarge, we've never revealed what Sarge's name is. I was talking to Gavin about that. Gavin didn't realize that we hadn't done that we've never told anyone what Sarge's name is. And yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I still feel like we released that somewhere. I don't know why.
Oh, hey, Jeff. What's up?
Yeah, hey, it's Jeff. Hey, how's it going? I swear we released his name somewhere, but I can't figure out where it was and I can't find it. But I guess I'm wrong.
No, see, we came up. What we did was we sat down and decided what it was. And
yeah,
and so we've talked about it and then extensively, and then I think around that time is when we came up with the Butch Flowers character.
Okay.
So, but I know what you mean though. I mean I think we'd written it down like we were going to do it, and then we just didn't do it.
Hey, let me ask you a question on top of that, because I remember when we changed Dex's name to Tex. Basically, partially because of that conversation we had with Andrew Jacks that day, but. At what point did Griff get the first name Dexter? Like, because I don't remember us naming Griff and said the original 6 or 7 dudes first name.
Yeah, I don't know. That would have been when we changed. That would have been between the time we did the trailer, when Tex was called Dex in the trailer, and I'm pretty sure we released not the trailer, episode 0, and I'm pretty sure we released that before we did episode 1. And then he was called Dexter Griff at the first PSA, so that had been the second week, because the first PSA came out with episode 2.
God, yeah, I guess it did. Okay, cool.
And I guess it was such an amazing revelation, somebody dropped their phone and had a heart attack, or whatever that was.
It sounds like it, yeah.
Magic of working with TalkShoe, 3 years and counting. But, I think I need better technology. I think I would have built something by now in the time it would have taken.
I love the beginning. I love the beginning when you have the disclaimer of, in case this entire thing locks up, here's what we're gonna do. It's like the emergency plan before you take off in a plane.
I'm not drunk tank. We go out live, man. We don't have the ability to edit or clean these things up. Well, I do, but I don't.
I have no idea how you do it. We could never do it live like this. It would be utterly impossible. We have to edit out all the screaming at each other, though. That kind of helps.
Yeah. Well, we drink, so that helps too.
But, Hey, congratulations! Are you a Phillies fan, by the way?
I am absolutely positively a Phillies fan. I cannot wait to stick it to the Yankees.
Yeah, good. Good. I mean, if there's any New York fans on here, I'm sorry. They're going to ask me about Lopez questions, but if they're a Yankees fan now. But, yeah, I can't wait. The Phillies-New York series is going to be incredible. And did you hear the good news, Jeff, that Jay-Z is going to be performing at the World Series?
Oh, dude, that's fantastic. Is that true?
Yeah.
I'll have to get my tickets.
Oh, man, is he playing one of the Philly games or one of the New York games? I mean, for his own safety, I would recommend he stay in New York.
I'm like the world's biggest white Jay-Z fan, so, yeah.
He did a show here in Philly, actually. He was, like, playing Empire State of Mind, and he was all like, you guys aren't going to like that song as much in a week from now. So he warned us.
Oh, you know what? It's going to be a New York game because he's going to be performing Empire State of Mind.
Yeah, he'd get lynched in Philadelphia. Well, I hate to say lynched. That's a really improper word to use, but yeah, seriously.
Well, see, now you wish you could edit.
See, you can't take that one back. But no, Jay-Z would not get out of Philadelphia alive if he tried and play that song in Philly. As much as we love him, actually, I'm a big Jay-Z fan myself. But we're holding up LFTO. Their man is like, why aren't you asking Red versus Blue questions? So we got the Recreator, or the Recreator, when he's having fun, on the call. Hey, man.
All right, this one's a little bit of a mixed bag. It's generally about the sort of balancing of dramedy in Red versus Blue. When you've got the joke characters like Donut and Caboose intermixed with serious characters like Washington, when you're trying to play off the comedy of a situation or the drama of a situation, how do you resolve that when you have characters that you've already established as essentially being invincible through sheer luck somehow, or otherwise just being unable to crack a laugh? I mean, I know you could use Wash as a straight man in a joke setup, but...
Well, we said, like you can see with the Recreation, we set up that Wash actually kills people, right? And we set that up in Reconstruction where he, before everyone gets hit by a ghost or they get blown up by a rocket, and it seems like whenever the Red versus Blue guys do it, people survive. But for some reason, whenever, Wash is an actual real character, he shoots South in the head, South is dead. When South shot him, it was a big deal that he was able to survive that. It's like these are characters that do that. Even Tex from the beginning, when she wiped out all of Sidewinder, where Church was stationed. So how do we balance it in reality? We balance it in reality by not including the characters that often. Tex is a very, very popular character who has extremely little screen time in Red versus Blue. I mean, a lot of people consider her to be the main cast. I would estimate that she's not even mentioned in 25% of the episodes that are out there. She's stronger in some seasons, like season 4, and then parts, mentions in season 5. But she's really not there that much. But, she's one of the people obviously carries a big burden for pushing the plot forward. I just consider her to be like the Boba Fett of Star Wars. Of Red versus Blue. Not that Boba Fett drives the storyline of Star Wars, but, it's just a character that has almost no screen time, but is, very important to some of the people who watch it. So that's how we handle it in reality. But how it ideally we like to handle it is Reconstruction was great because I could bring in Wash and I could give this guy a task to do, and then the only method he had to complete the task was to work with the guys from Blood Gulch, and that's the worst possible setup for anybody who wants to get anything done. And, the scenes where he's standing there trying to figure out information while Caboose and Church bicker with one another, that's just, that's the formula for balancing those two things, right? You get to have the constant comedic relief. One of the points of Reconstruction was to make all the main characters from Blood Gulch Chronicles, make them minor characters, make them supporting characters, every last one of them, and make Wash the main character. And that was a lot of fun.
And then you've pretty much gone around and turned that around with Recreation.
Yeah, now Recreation is more like Blood Gulch Chronicles, right, where it's all about them. And then, you could look at Recreation and you could go back to the old criticisms that people have of Blood Gulch Chronicles, which is, well, not much happened. What happened? You know what I mean? They did this. There was basically 2 goals for the entire season, which was to get Church into a body and to convert Washington to a villain. And everything else in between was just fun. The Gauss Warthog, which was the big device and Relocated, was really just essentially a prop for more jokes in Recreation. It wasn't really necessary for them to get a Gauss warthog. Like getting Church in that body and getting Washington to the point where he was, that was very important to the overall story. And so they basically had a whole fun season where we just had to achieve 2 goals.
Hold on, I'm sort of racking my mind here. A lot to process at the moment.
I'm trying to figure out how to balance comedy and drama on this phone call.
Dun, dun.
We get all the air. That's the problem with live broadcast. Dead air.
Oh, yeah, seriously. I am playing with the putty from Amy and Knives from Citation Needed. They brought a whole bunch of the stuff up from for RT Philly, and I still have like a whole bunch of it sitting around in my house.
What is it? What kind of putty?
It's like silly putty. I'm not sure if you can actually like press a comic against it and actually have it rub off. Let me try it on an issue of Maxim, see if that works.
Does anybody have comics anymore? Do you actually have a newspaper in your house that has comics?
No, my goodness. I mean, I'm like, Scott Kurtz from PvP and Chris Straub made this video sort of parodying Glengarry Glen Ross, only they used like the old school comic characters like Heathcliff, and they had like Prince Valiant as the Alec Baldwin role, which is like, great father, F you, go play with Billy and Jeffy.
Is Prince Valiant still running? And Mary Worth, are those things like the serious comics, are they still running today?
See, Mary Worth is one of those things where I didn't even know it was a comic, except insofar it was mentioned on things like The Simpsons or in like a podcast like this. I've never actually physically seen Mary Worth. Prince Valiant could be. I mean, it's been around forever. It'll be there like 20 years after I die.
Those things will never make the transition to the web, I don't think. You know, where they have the online version of Prince Valiant.
But I mean, like there won't be newspapers in like 10 years, or they'll be radically different from what they are now. So I mean, those webcomic guys are probably laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah, they are. Well, they're at the forefront, so some of them are.
Well, relatively speaking, but hey, do you get your bearings back, Recreator, or are you recreating?
All right, I think I'm going. Let's go with Recreator tonight.
Okay.
Let's see. I think I'm going to jump around the list a little bit and go to a church question that I had further down. It seems like you almost have a sort of Holy Trinity with church. You've got the Father, Dr. Church, the director and all. You have the Son, the original AI Alpha, the Alpha Church. And then you sort of have Epsilon, who kind of represents the Holy Ghost. Have you considered this angle before? Is this, well, what are your thoughts on that?
If that lines up, I'd like to take credit for stuff like that, but that's not the case. I'm not trying to build that. Threes are big numbers in literature. We actually did a trilogy with this just because of the pacing of the story and what we wanted to do. But I actually don't understand the fascination with trilogies. I've never understood. Like, I understand why there's not a movie and then a sequel. Why can't you tell, like, The Matrix, for instance, is a good one. Why couldn't they tell The Matrix and then tell the second one as those 2 last stories, you know? And now I guess we're guilty of that, too, because we're making, 3 movies 3 years in a row that all tie into a trilogy. But we wanted to have kind of a fun break in the middle and kind of prep for some other stuff. So, no, I'm not tied into threes. I'm not big into numerology at all. Like, I don't get all sucked into the whole like Bungie 7 thing or the Halo 7 thing. I do like the 7 Deadly Sins, but I don't like them because there's 7 of them. I just have always liked that thematically.
I can verify that you bitch about trilogies constantly.
Well, I bitch about what?
I said I can verify that you bitch about trilogies constantly.
I do bitch about trilogies. I just always wonder, and here we are doing it, right, Jeff? I'm making a trilogy, and I always complain.
Yeah, you're what we call in the biz a hypocrite.
I guess so. All right, fuck it. I'm going to make 4. No, never mind. I'm just going to make 2. That was the end. Yesterday was the end. That's it.
Aww. See, I also was getting a little bit more to a different point. You've actually sort of got Dr. Church, Alpha Church, and Epsilon Church.
Yep. They're
all sort of tied to this one central character, the original AI Alpha. They are just one step removed from that. Would you say that the original Alpha Church is ever going to make an appearance of any sort? Is his Is this his story?
Alpha Church, well, at the end of Recreation, we showed Alpha Church. The end of Reconstruction, we showed Alpha Church. By the way, naming these things, too, I always get them mixed up when we talk about them in the office. We've called the Recreation DVD the Reconstruction DVD about 1,000 times. So Epsilon and Church are really the same. They're the same person, just kind of split up. And Epsilon just is a fortunate the way we've built him. It's just fortunate that he can take on a lot of the aspects of Church and seem very much like Church because he has all the memories thereof, which is, memory being key of the trilogy, is that, Church, this Epsilon character is nice because it's a nice way to bring back Church without actually bringing back the character. I mean, the character Church is gone. The character's gone. But Epsilon is there as kind of a proxy for Church. And that's why, it's very difficult when we kill some characters, in the series because, I'm good friends with the people who play those characters. It's always a very difficult conversation, as you can imagine, to kill a character that someone plays. And, I always look at it as that, I don't like bringing characters back from the dead, but just because a character dies doesn't mean you will never see the character again. This is a long storyline that encompasses a number of different years, and you can tell lots of different stories along the way. I like Halo a lot, but man, it seems like they have mapped every moment of Master Chief's life from the moment he was picked up as a kid and moment he puts on Spartan armor to the moment, at the end of Halo 3. It seems like every single moment of his life has been told, and there's no gaps in there for them to go back and tell any other stories. But even a character like Donut, we have a huge gap with Donut, where if we ever wanted to tell a story with Donut, we could just tell the story with Donut. I mean, we could revisit the character in a totally different context without essentially bringing him back from the dead. I got a whole tangent there, but
blew our minds there. You're talking about like holy trinities and proxies for Church, and I'm wondering if my sister, who's trying to be a nun, is going to be heading over here to beat me with a ruler or something.
Is your sister trying to be a nun, really?
She is trying to be a nun. I got my younger brother, is actually in seminary right now, so half of them are going up to service, I guess, to the holy life. Wow,
that's pretty impressive. I don't really ever talk about this, but my parents, my dad was a Catholic priest, and my mother was a Catholic nun. And it's even weird to say that like in public because we were never supposed to talk about that because it was a very big deal when they left the church for obvious reasons. And
sure.
And so one of the reasons why my dad didn't like it very much was why I had a hard time in that life was that he was so young and everyone was so old. He was a priest in the 60s, and I don't want to get too much into his life, but he was told certain things like he couldn't preach in black churches. And things like that. Ran into a lot of things that were completely counter to what he was expecting, and so he's always felt like it's very hard for young priests starting off. So, that's awesome to hear that your brother and sister are headed off into that life, difficult life,
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question, Burnie, that I've always kind of wondered about your mom and your dad? Does that sort of make you like Rosemary's Baby to a degree?
No.
Burnie right there.
Because I've got some suspicions.
Yeah,
my
brother my brother always told me growing up, I have an older brother, so he's the one who's, I'm just like an evil byproduct, I think, but he's the one who caused all the trouble. And after like 15 years, as a Catholic priest, you're not supposed to leave. You don't leave the church, you just don't do it. And so technically my dad was considered a priest for a long period of time, even though he was married and had a family. And my brother always told me that there was a letter in the filing cabinet that basically my brother had a letter from the Catholic Church that acknowledged his existence, like where they officially decided to recognize my brother as a person.
Is that true?
Yeah, that's what he said. I never saw the letter, but that's what he always said growing up. So
your brother's kind of a liar, then. So
yeah, I guess so. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
No, indeed.
I call my Cody Derrick going.
It's a pretty hardcore thing. Like, no matter what happens, like, once you get those holy orders, like, you're a priest. I mean, if you get married after the fact, you're still a priest. I mean, there's no rule, actually. I think someone's rubbing, like, sandpaper. Like, wow.
But as far as, I mean, this goes back to the question of the Holy Trinity stuff in Red versus Blue. There's not that, just because I don't consider that to be a huge influence. I have read the Bible cover to cover. I know the stories that pretty much everybody else knows. My dad who had an education for 15 years in that knows like the letters that John sent to Paul on this date and the interpretations thereof and all that. So I never really learned beyond the basics of the Bible.
Sure.
And I was raised Christian. I was raised like semi-Catholic, I guess. I'm more influenced by, Jeff just started reading Ender's Game. Like, I love Ender's Game. Probably the biggest influence on Red versus Blue is stuff like Dark Star. If you go back and watch Dark Star and you're a fan of Red versus Blue, you probably would like Dark Star a lot, even though it's, such a low-budget camping movie. It's John Carpenter's movie he made in college. And it's basically about guys who travel around in a spaceship and blow up planets. And they all hate each other because they've just been trapped together for so long. And you can clearly see how that would influence Red versus Blue.
Well, I think we had another caller in the room. Super Jim, I believe I unmuted him. I'm not sure. Oh, wait, I didn't. Now I did. You're on the Late Night Jenga Jam.
Hello, I am.
Hello, Jim?
Yep.
Go ahead. You're on the air with Burnie.
Hey, Burnie.
Hey, what's up?
I have a question about the AI fragment process, which essentially is what was the exact specific process that occurred on the alpha in order to harvest all those fragments? Okay.
Without going, we do have one story left in this, so I don't want to give away too much. This is one of those things we're brushing up against the Halo universe, right? We kind of have to take what information we know about AI from the actual Halo stories and kind of make sure that our story fits inside of that without actually trying to be like that. Does that make sense? And so what I have to do is, in order to change things, I have to make sure there's an opportunity for the possibility of the opportunity to have some kind of change in that. And you can't split an AI. You can't base an AI on a living person, and you can't split an AI. There's no precedent for that in the Halo universe. And so in reading through the books, I tried to find things where you could have perhaps an experimental process by which you could do that. And without getting too deep into it, because I'd like to kind of reserve some of that for the next story, there is an opportunity with the war going on and everything to break something in such a way that something else might try to fix it. And I think if you know the Halo universe, there's certain things that are good at fixing, and that could be part of the process. And that's always what I've had as how the AI was split. And the way you break an AI is, you just do things to it to drive it insane. If you torture it, it's based on a human brain, so it has essentially the same psychology, at least in my mind it does. And if you can do certain things to it, like alienate it and isolate it and scare it and essentially mentally torture it, it could react in the exact same way that a human brain would work. It would break down in multiple personality disorders, especially, and this is kind of a sick thing to think about, but the person that it's based on is the one that's torturing it, so it knows all the worst things about it. So that's while it's not an exact description of what took place, it's always what I've had in my mind for how the process worked.
No, actually, that leads up into my second question. The fragments, they were named after the Greek letters. Are there names of importance? Like Delta was the logic, and in the Greek myth, Daedalus marked all his inventions with the letter Delta, and he was supposed to be the super genius of the Greek mythology world. Is that on purpose, or is that just a coincidence?
No, we looked up for different things. There's some AI that haven't been revealed, and they have different connotations too. Like there's different meanings for the different letters. Jeff, you probably remember when we were going through at the beginning of Reconstruction and naming some of these different AI. Like Reconstruction at the beginning, there's an actual letter that's in the name of Reconstruction, Xi, and that's typically associated with creativity and applying different solutions to obvious problems. And then there's ones like Sigma, which have a mathematical meaning, which summation. But then there's other ones too that there's a lot of times with the Greek letters you can kind of associate them with an order too. Alpha being the first one, Omega being the last one. And then, of course, there's beta, like what came out second. And then we have, we just go through, we research the different letters, and we have, this big chart with states and letters, and they don't all make the cut. Just like in Halo, if you've read the books, John is Spartan 117, but that doesn't mean there's 116 successful Spartans in front of him. There's a lot of people who don't make it through the process. And likewise, with this freelancer AI project, there was a lot of both fragments and freelancers who didn't make the cut for whatever reason.
So just because there's 24 Greek letters does not mean there's 24 AI fragments.
Yeah, well, they had a feeling, that if they're starting off with these AI, they have less AI. They probably need X amount of soldiers, and how many can they possibly get through the process to where they can implant with an AI, and you can pretty much make an assumption that they needed some spare soldiers, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like we've even seen some soldiers in Red versus Blue that didn't have AI, but they were part of the freelancer project.
Okay. Yeah, that answers my question. Thanks.
Okay.
Great. Next up, we have Leaf Shinobi 7, actually, if that's a... Mike, did I cut somebody off? I'm sorry.
That's right.
Okay, Leaf Shinobi, you're on Late Night JengaJam.
Hey, Bernie.
Hey, what's up?
Not much. My question for you is, what was Sal's motivation for following Wash in Reconstruction? I mean, Delta cautioned her against it, but we were never really given a reason why she followed him.
Why Sal followed who?
Why Sal was following Wash during Reconstruction.
These people are connecting away. Like, why was she tailing south when the meta caught up with her? Is that what you're saying? When she caught up to him on high ground? I don't think we really gave a motivation or had a specific reason why that would be. But South was always a very opportunistic person, and who's to say that the meta's plan for gathering AI, once South had one of them, why not try to find another one? And Wash was a very key link to finding other freelancers, because Wash being a recovery agent, he could follow people back. And there's also a thing with anyone who's a criminal, it's just the nature that they always make their way back to the scene. And essentially, South, the scene of her worst crime is Washington himself, And so it seemed very motivated to me, at least, that she would be following him, And if someone's hunting you down, you may as well hunt them down first. And it just happened at a point in time that didn't quite work out for her.
Right. So so I guess it was agreed, and so that's pretty much similar to what the meta was doing, basically.
Yeah. I mean, she might not have been as sophisticated in her plan as the meta was. I mean, she didn't have the goal of rebuilding the alpha.
Right.
But those AI, we get the things that are we've hinted at it. Sometimes I wonder if the puzzle pieces, no matter how clearly that we've stated them, I was worried that people haven't. There was a lot of stuff we laid out in season 5 that people missed entirely, and it's not anyone's fault but our own. Just because we kind of reacted to the audience, where there was a guy in season 1 who, at episode 11, when we had about 7 episodes left or 8 episodes left, he laid out in the forum. He laid out the entire rest of the season of Red versus Blue, almost to the letter. Aside from the church, Sarge, the death scene where Church is in Sarge's helmet, and Sarge gets shot, and they have that whole scene. He didn't, nobody could see that coming. But he laid out the whole thing in text, and the reveal of text, and the twist, and what he thought might happen, and he was right. Likewise, in season 3, before we really obviously put anything out there, somebody came up to us and said, "So Church is an AI, right? He's like Omega. Is he related to Omega in some way?" And I was like, "Holy shit! Where did this guy get all this stuff from?" And he laid all that out. And so that, in a way, that made us. And it goes back to why I get kind of upset about sci-fi being mystery. I felt the need to back off a lot of this stuff, and so likewise now when we're doing stuff, I always get kind of worried that it's always the idea of how much information to put out there. But I think we've been very clear about this, that the freelancers have this advanced equipment in their armor, but that the equipment is very difficult to run, and they need these fragments, these little chunks of AI that help them run their equipment. and without it, they can't use it as well. We saw some of that in Recreation with the meta not being able to run his invisibility anymore, and he's just having difficulty, with the process. So South, once she gets exposed to one AI, she has Delta. Having an AI with that armor makes her that much stronger. So it gives her the idea now that, if it's a step up, what's the next step for her? Which is eventually what led to the meta becoming what he is.
Right. So she became power hungry.
Yeah. I can. Yeah.
All right.
It's a criminal mind.
All right. I guess that's it for me. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry for the comment on the RT shorts, the final RT short that sent everybody to your profile demanding more. Because I meant that as a joke.
Don't apologize to me. You can apologize to Brandon. Brandon has been ridiculed endlessly for making that post about the RT shorts being the last RT short. We don't know why he wrote that, but we just told him it was a season finale. And what did he write, Jeff? He wrote. What did he write? The last RT short in the RT short saga, or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yes. It sounded very final.
Precocious youth. Chalk it up to that.
No, but listen, I appreciate people coming to my profile to tell me that they like them, even if they're kind of misguided in the sense that they think I'm going to cancel the shorts, which, our live action stuff is not just going to be canceled by any stretch of the imagination.
All right. Cool. Lee Shinobi, thank you so much for the call. Thank you. Okay. Before we get to our next caller, I know we missed a few people, and we have a few more questions from the Recreator. We'll let him fill the tree for a little bit. You still with us, Recreator?
I'm still here.
And
right,
for the sake of time, I'll try to be less verbose for the sake of time. Sorry about that.
No problem.
We apparently like hearing you talk. All right, let's make this fast. Private Jimmy from Season 1 and Out of Mind. What's up with
him? What about him?
Yeah, that's the question. What about him?
What about him?
He seems to be sort of common in Church's background. He seems almost important somehow.
He is. I mean, Private Jimmy is in the training facility for the freelancers, and that actually is important that he was there because he's there at Sidewinder as well, and those events tie in very closely to each other. Church was put at Sidewinder by someone for some reason, and then for yet some other reason, Tech showed up and wiped out everyone that was there, and that is important. But Jimmy himself is not important. But the fact that he ties those two events together actually is.
Cool. Let's see. I'm also going to substitute for Oro here. He was going to ask, "Where's Vic?"
What's that?
Vic from Blood Gold Chronicles.
Oh, where's Vic?
He's still around.
Yeah, no, Vic's dead. Vic's not dead. He's the events after in season 3 when there was the change that took place, and we talked a little bit. The counselor talked about the change with burial mounds that took place, and then the version of Vic that we all became familiar with the season 3 Vic. Yeah, he's gone. Yeah, he's gone. He's still I guess down in
Vic Jr.
Yeah, down Vic Jr. Yeah, he's still underneath Blood Gulch somewhere. Locked away on a hard drive, I guess.
Is that significant in any way that the original Vic is gone?
What's that?
Is that significant in any way that the original version of Vic is gone?
It's significant in the sense in the course of the events of season 3 are significant of what happened to them. I guess significant in that, but not in the sense that Blue Command that Vic is missing. No, not necessarily. But there was a definite shift from season 1 to season 2 of what Vic was. He's probably one of the characters who changed the most. Whereas before he was just some kind of, he was just the command guy. But then he became the vehicle in season 2, which lets you reveal that red and blue, the higher you go, the more connected they are. And so Vic was very important at that point in time. And then, the Vic that we saw later, the more animated Vic, was just a different version thereof.
Okay. All right, let me keep looking down the list.
But
I think we have. Yeah. Maybe a cameo appearance?
Maybe. Did you guys see the audio that I put up in my profile of the guy whose Vic is based on? And he was actually he was reading. What was that?
Oh, I believe it was on one of the drunk tanks.
Oh, is that what it was on? Yeah, I'll post it. I can post it in my profile. But we met the guy out at Comic-Con this year who was the inspiration for the voice of Vic, that cadence that Vic has, and it's a guy we knew in college. And so I just had him read a bunch of Vic lines, like "Hey you, no solo me yo," and all that. And so it was pretty funny. We were pretty drunk when he did it, and it was pretty funny. I recorded it on my iPhone.
Wow, very good. So, do you have any more questions on your side, or do you go through your list?
I have more questions, but I think I'd like to try to keep this in order.
No problem. I got Lucky 13. You'll be up next, or 13 Lucky. I'm not sure what your name is. Whoever you are, you're on the JengaJam.
Hey guys.
Hey, what's up?
Nothing. Okay, Burnie, Caboose, and LFTO were wondering, Church's first body, then he wasn't AI then. When it blew up, Tucker mentioned that it smelled, and Caboose said there were birds flying over it. So was his first body a human body he was implanted in, or how does that work?
No, it's the same body. It's the same. It's the same mechanical body. And those events take place. I'm kind of echoing a little bit before we set it up. That would, if I had to have one inconsistency in the whole storyline, it's that one. The Church's body and the Tucker thing. Now, Church doesn't reference his own body in that. He just wants the body buried for whatever reason. Tucker's, of course, cracking his jokes about it stinking or whatever. But the best way to think about it is that the existence of Lopez is important in the sense of the existence of Church, in that everything is balanced in Blood Gulch Canyon, right? The one thing that's not balanced is the fact that Red Team, for whatever, has a robot. And why is that, And so you have to extrapolate backwards for, why is this one thing imbalanced? They both have a vehicle. They both have a base, they both have a flag. Why does one team get this robot? And it's the actual explanation for it is based in the larger story.
Hang on for a second.
Oh, sorry about that, Lucky 13. We were getting an echo from you. And now an echo from me. All right, let me know when your speakers are muted. There we go. Just figured it out. Trouble of live radio, my friends. This is pretty exciting.
Reverb gives my voice a more authoritative sound, like I'm speaking in a stadium.
Oh. And hey, it makes us sound like we're like in a mountain or a valley somewhere. I mean, I'm hoping someone says Rico loud the second I unmute him. Okay, Lucky 13. Any luck?
Yeah, sorry about that. I need to grab my headphones.
Oh, you had another question?
There's just one more. We wanted to know, because the red and the blue team had robot kits, right? Both teams had them. Why were blue team given robot kits if only Sarge was capable of creating the robots, or Sarge is the only one who actually tried reading the instructions?
So it's part of the bureaucracy of River. A lot of the humor in Reverse Blue is based on bureaucracy, right? And we didn't actually acknowledge that Lopez was a robot until, I think, episode 12, because even Griff says, I don't know, I didn't know he was a robot. He was just a character who didn't say anything for the first part of season 1. But the fact that Sarge could do it, that Sarge could build this kit and make it work, was just the way Sarge is, being this weirdo fringe like scientist. Sarge is like a hobbyist, right? Like a tech hobbyist who can do all this random stuff, like build hollow rooms with Lopez and tinker with his Jeep, and is always working on doomsday devices and things like that. So he was able to take the kit that Red Base, for whatever reason, had one. And if you want to look at the reason, Blue Base needed one, and Red Base got one just because that's the way it works. They have a base over there, we have a base over here, they get this amount of stuff, we get this amount of stuff, and so because they shipped these kits to Blue Base and had them there, they just shipped them to Red Base for balance. It's a little bit of bureaucracy and it's a little bit of science, right? In that these outposts that they had were all based in some kind of a grander experiment. And so to have the experiment run properly, you have to have a certain level of balance. And so, and Red vs. Blue is all about that, where everything's perfectly balanced, but some of the comedy comes out and that the blue team's kind of completely fucked up constantly because they either kill their own guys, like Butch Flowers, and then they kill Church. You know, and they're constantly getting themselves out of whack. There was some of that in Recreation as well.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, I had to mute 13 Lucky because of all the sound issues there. So I'm going to assume he's satisfied with your answer. Is that a fair assumption? I think so.
We'll find out.
Oh, well, that's cool. Recreator, how about land some more questions on this?
All right. Caboose, end of Reconstruction, driving off a cliff. How did he live?
Well, that's in the that's in an Easter egg on the Reconstruction DVD. How he lived. Is it a deleted scene, Jeff, or is it an Easter egg?
I thought it was a deleted scene actually, but maybe I'm wrong.
The ending, I think, was what you guys called it, where he just simply crashed into Valhalla.
Yeah. So it's like essentially, he crashed. Essentially, that cliff that they drove off of is right over Valhalla. You know, I guess. So it was just a really bizarre way to park the vehicle, was to crash land and land there.
Wow.
So
those vehicles have, we don't talk about it, but those vehicles have tremendous shocks. So keep pushing.
Yeah, absolutely. You can drive a Warthog off anything, survive.
Yeah.
Well, how convenient. It seems to wrap up on a nice little package. Oh, it does. It sounded sarcastic.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Someone I get the Simpsons reference. I would have been disappointed. I would have ended the call right then and there if someone hadn't gotten it.
Dude, I'm going to get any Simpsons reference you throw, not from the last 5 years, I'm going to get.
That wasn't even from the last 5 years. That was like 10 years, 12 years.
Age, dude.
That's from the good old days. In fact, I think I can even name the episode. Oh, I think it was Part of Darkness.
Maybe. I'll take your word for it, I guess. I like The Simpsons.
I think you're being out-Simpsoned.
Honestly, I only know the first 8 seasons. I stopped watching the DVD sets after the 9.
So you're saying you're just committing to the first 160 episodes? Is that what I'm hearing here? That's it, though?
Yes.
That's the limit? 160? Okay, got
160, 200, something like that.
You know what? It's just the hip thing to say. Oh, I watched the earlier episode of Simpsons, but I don't watch it now. You know, I'm going to become a modern Simpsons geek and start watching the new episodes, along with 3 or 4 other people. You know, just to have that hardcore geek cred.
No, I hear you. There's a lot of that. You know what I mean? I mean, we've been doing Red vs. Blue now for 7 years. You know, and we run into people at cons, and they're like, wow, you know, I didn't realize you guys had made, you know, 7 seasons. I watched like the first 2 seasons, and I haven't seen the last thing. And then, you know, they buy a bunch of DVDs, and we love them for it. You know, and we even get fans who come up and say, I don't watch the series online anymore. I just wait for it on DVD because I like the experience on DVD so much better. You know, I'm sorry, I just don't come by the site to watch it. I just wait till it comes on DVD and buy it. And I go, hey, no complaints here. You know, we take viewers any way we can get them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I'm actually doing in Philly. We're putting together a small screening of Red vs. Blue seasons 1 through 5, and then also Reconstruction, just to sort of get together an excuse to really get the ball rolling on RT Philly next year.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be November 7th. Time and date to be located, but you know, just because, you know, I mean, it's kind of cool to get a bunch of people together from the internet and just sort of sit around and watch stuff.
You know, it's fun to watch, dude. We love watching it with an audience, too, because we never get to hear people laugh at it. And it's a lot of fun. One of the best parts about making the DVD is, I told this to Jeff the other day, is that I'll bring people in. I'll say, hey, can you look at this edit? Like, we want to look at compression. Or when we glue 2 episodes together, we want to make sure they glue together in the right way. And the guy will come in, like Nathan was in there the other day, and we were watching, I forget what the scene was, but it was the scene between, it was the scene where Caboose is talking about he feels like he's being watched, and do you ever feel like you're being watched? And then he turns to Donut, who's standing behind him, and goes, Donut, I'm asking you a question. And every time Nathan came in and looked at the transition, every time that moment happened, he laughed behind me. And it's always, like, great that, you know, I guess it seems kind of lame, but at the same time it's fun that we laugh at our own stuff, you know?
Oh. Why shouldn't you? It's funny. I mean, like, I imagine the guys who write The Office still laugh at their material.
Yeah, so it's definitely it's a fun environment to work in. And that's part of the reason why Buckeye asked if I ever look back. And, you know, I don't remember laughing my ass off every single day at my other job. And, I mean, every day at the office, we just crack up laughing. And it's a great way to be able to work, and we really appreciate everybody who makes that possible.
Well, we have another caller in the room. I think his mouth is on his tail. Ouroboros, you're on Late Night JengaJam.
Where am I? Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, in fact, it's nice to finally talk to you in person. I always thought your name was
we'll see about that, Benny.
I thought it was pronounced Ouroboros, but it's Ouroboros.
It does me fine. Just one question on, we've covered the Vic questions, which is fantastic. Thank you very much, Rick. But just more a question about Machinima in general, seeing as you guys are pretty much creating this one and only business model. Do you, just about the future of Machinima, it was born out of a hack. The novelty of it has kind of been exploited. It's been about 7 years since you've done it. There's other people doing Machinima stories. Where, in your opinion, do you see the future of Machinima lies? If it even has one.
We don't use the word Machinima a lot. There's a lot of times we get asked to go talk about it. Like I just did a speech at Texas State, but that was kind of, I guess that was more about the internet business model. But we didn't come up with the term Machinima, and we didn't set out to we didn't say, hey, we want to make a Machinima show. We didn't really know what it was at the time. So we've kind of had a big footprint in the Machinima world for a long period of time, and it's not by design that we're trying to do that.
Right.
So, when you ask me what I think the future of Machinima is, I'm not trying to be negative when I say I don't think people will talk about Machinima as being separate than animation in a few years, because we're seeing all the time. It's coming from two directions. Games are becoming more and more closer to photographic realism. And likewise, we see tools in the animation world all the time where people are trying to do more and more stuff in real time. And eventually that's just going to meet in the middle, and there's going to be one big blend of animation. And I think Machinima will be a part of that. I think the word novelty, it sounds a little pejorative, but the word you used, but I don't think it's inaccurate. I think there's definitely some novelty to Machinima. And I think a big problem with a lot of Machinima is that there's a lot of people, I think, that feel that because it's in a video game, it's got to be about a video game. And,
right.
Nothing ever breaks out if that's going to be the case. So, I wrote a journal about this, but I think that, it seems like Machinima, after 7 years of working in it, it doesn't seem like it's in a better place today than it was when we started doing it. When we started doing it, we would go to award ceremonies, and people like Tommy Pilata, the guy who directed Scanner Darkly, he had Machinima videos out there. And the wife, John Carmack, she had the big one that year. What was that called, Jeff? Anna or something? It was a story about a little girl in the Quake engine, but it didn't look anything like Quake. And, I don't know if it's because of the popularity of Red versus Blue, but now it's like a lot of Halo videos with people, screaming at each other.
Right.
And occasionally you'll get something that comes out that, like Lit Fuse Films has done some stuff in Team Fortress and in the Source engine I thought has been kind of pushing the envelope a little bit. I don't know. I can't help but escape the feeling that it's not what it once was. But that provides a lot of opportunity for somebody who has something cool that they want to do, I think.
Yeah, possibly. I was in Sicily about 2 or 3 months ago. I was walking past a puppetry shop, and I was looking at these very sophisticated, very intensely modeled puppets. And I was thinking, there you are. There it is, 17th century Machinima. Basically, you're just moving, puppeteers, putting a voice over and creating a story with it. And when I was looking around at various forms of Machinima, I could see people doing some very sophisticated things visually. But when it came to actual storytelling, not so much. And I was thinking, if they, just as you were saying, if they were using Machinima, perhaps in combination with something else, the opening might be just to tell more fulfilling stories rather than creating visual spectacles.
Yeah, and that's the case. We're seeing the same thing on the internet because now everyone has the ability to distribute to everyone else in the world. You don't have to go to television. Yeah. And so, but look what that ends up producing a lot of noise.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You'll get a Guild and a Red versus Blue and a Homestar Runner, every now and then. But in the meantime, you get a lot of other stuff with people just kind of trying things out, and it's all on the same level playing field. So it can be hard, very, very hard to find things nowadays. We're very fortunate that we started Red versus Blue at the point in history when we did. If we started Red versus Blue today, I don't think we get nearly the attention that we did back then.
Thanks, Benny.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Roberts.
And thank you for that awesome remix from Reconstruction, the Deconstruction remix. One of my favorite pieces of all time.
Put that on.
I think that's what I do is remix Nico's music.
Very good. Thanks again to Roberts. He brings up an interesting point about convergence. You know, like the thing that's been promised to me as a child, since I was 8 years old, that my internet, my TV, and my phone would all be one day. And who is eating sandpaper? I wonder. Let me see if I can mute them.
Let's see. I had a couple of questions that I've been asked to ask that were popping up in the chat, etc.
Go for it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Here, I'll go with the first one that I actually remember right now. How exactly did you come across LFTO, and what were your thoughts upon seeing all this?
I think when I went out looking. I'm on the forums all the time, whether or not I post. And I think I was just trying to figure out, how people were reacting to Reconstruction, and then I saw LFTO. And I saw the stuff they were talking about, and I saw some elements. I think this was probably around the time that Wash was fighting South in the meta in Reconstruction. And this is going to sound weird probably to you guys, but just the fact that people knew who Delta was and that they understood who that character was, because I love the character Delta. I actually haven't had really an opportunity on this call to hear what people have really liked so far. Do people like characters like York and Delta? I know Obo likes York a lot. She made a shirt based on York. And so I go out there trying to see that feedback, see if people are picking up on things. And, I just found the LFTO thread through that. And I actually read like 5 or 6 pages and like, whoa, I've got to stop reading this because it's making me think too much about it, if that makes sense, I'm like second-guessing some stuff that I'm thinking about or thinking, I'm telling the story in the wrong way. I got to speed this up. I got to slow this down. I was like, no, I just got to keep doing it the way I'm doing it. And I want to tell this particular story, so I kind of backed off of it a little bit. I think I've posted in the thread a couple times and said that hey, I'm here to say hello. I like what I'm reading, and thanks. Appreciate you all discussing it so intently. And I'll never read this thread again. Thank you. Bye.
Right. Let's see. I think before I forget, the second question. Who killed Captain Flowers?
Well, that's in season 3. And we discussed the whole killing Captain Flowers.
I think the second time he died.
Oh! You mean when he comes back in season 5 out of when he comes back when the alien revives him?
And then someone off screen shoots him.
It's just part of the battle. If I had to guess, I'd say one of the Wyoming shot him. He's just part of the battle. That was that's one of those things where, Captain Flowers kind of ties some things in together, and that he was the leader of Blue Base, and we also, I don't know if you know this or not, but he was also at the training facility for the freelancers, and he was actually meant to be, for people who were interested, a way that tied in Blood Gulch to Project Freelancer. And, it's a fun character. I mean, the character was totally based on the fact that Ed Robertson wanted to do a voice, and so we wrote a character for him. I wouldn't take anything that Butch Flowers does as being some kind of massive canonical, move forward, because honestly, I mean, if I wanted to have some kind of plot device where it was important for him to be there, I don't necessarily know I could get Ed or said he would be available at that time to do it. So
I could rely on.
He's not an integral character, I wouldn't say.
Cool. All right, let's see. There was someone else in here that wanted to talk. I think it was Lee. Hold on. Oh, wait, no.
No More Illusions. No More Illusions has a question, actually. No More Illusions is Miss Z on the thread.
All right. I'll go ahead and unmute them, actually, if that's cool. No More Illusions. You're on Late Night JengaJam.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm Miss Dora on the thread. I'm the one who painted the dolls.
Oh, yeah. Hey, how you doing? Those are awesome.
I'm doing great. I have the red team almost done. And I'm having problems with the blue paint colors. They're not coming out well. But red team is almost done.
She made these Russian dolls of the freelancers where they're all nested inside of each other. There's the Meta, then Washington, and then York, and then South, and then Delta. Or wait, it's South, York, then Delta.
Oh, they all know.
Awesome. What's that?
I said they all know.
It's awesome. Really awesome.
Yes, I have a very unnatural obsession with Delta, as everybody will tell.
Oh, do you really?
I do.
I really like the character, too. I like Delta, the character, a lot.
Yeah, the whole reason that I painted those dolls in that particular order was because I wanted them all to have Delta as that little connection, because, yeah, I love Delta.
Well, he's the only AI that we've really run into. I mean, now we have Epsilon. We have these other characters that are coming in, too. I guess Gary was actually the first one that we had. But we never really knew what Gary was for the longest period of time. He never really appeared as an AI. He was more of, working with Wyoming to, in the Seven Deadly Sins, Gary is the deceit, essentially. He's the liar of the bunch and the devious one. And it also, I don't know if anyone ever picks up on stuff like this, but Church being alpha and split up from everything else, is he's missing components, right? The purified forms of some of these emotions are missing, and Church is a horrible liar. Like if you look at season 2 and season 3, he just can't lie. Like when he tries to lie to Sheila and Lopez, and he just like rambles and rambles and rambles, it's because his ability to lie is kind of missing. It's kind of short circuited in that sense because it's been split off from him. So he's a terrible liar. And there's a point at which he takes over Donut, and he can't. He's trying to act as Donut, but he's so bad at it, he can't lie. He keeps calling himself the pink guy and stuff like that. So anyway.
Yeah, they want to surrender to us. I mean them. No, I mean us. Yeah, that's right.
I mean me. The
Dirty
guy.
Blues.
Yeah.
I'm so mad, I can spit.
Right. So being the one who has the really geek obsession with AI, most of my questions are along those lines, although most of them are more kind of yes-no questions, as in, will you ever tell us yes or no kind of thing? So my first one is, will you ever tell us what really happened to Theta?
You know what? I don't have any. That's like it's not on the list of things to discuss. You mean North's AI, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's not a really big thing on the list to do, and I think there's a lot of people too that, I haven't seen a lot of discussion about what AI the Meta actually had or didn't have.
Sorry.
I'm sure that probably exists somewhere, but I haven't seen it. I'd be interested to read that.
Every single time somebody brings up, Theta was in the Meta, I say, no, he wasn't, and I give them a long explanation as to why.
Yeah, I can see that, I can probably reconstruct, or reverse engineer your arguments for that. But we never really saw what happened to South and North before Washington showed up. We just knew Washington was called, and we know at some point before that North was killed, and we know that South told a story about what happened, and then we later know that South was just trying to put herself in a position to get Delta, and that she was working with Project Freelancer, the lead command at that point in time. But I would say this: don't take her story as to what happened with North to be gospel.
Right.
And also that Washington picks up the recovery agent beacons. He picks them up that they're going off, and then he gets information from command as to what happened. He doesn't go immediately to the recovery beacons by himself. In Reconstruction, he got a recovery beacon. Command said, it's Agent Maine, and then they tried to figure out where he was. Like the Meta was trying to hide where he was, but Washington depends in a lot of cases on command. Who's played by Lee Eddy to tell him where to go and what to do. So everything filters back through command, but it basically puts him on alert essentially. And there was some of that at the end of Reconstruction too. When his recovery beacon went off, you saw the information coming in behind him that he was in danger of being killed.
Right. The second question I had regarding AI is a little more broad. I know that you've given your explanation of why Church hasn't gone rampant yet. my thoughts on that were, did you ever consider the fact that maybe the fact that he was split is preventing him from getting to that point?
It's a possibility. I mean, they filtered out all the negative parts of his personality, or I shouldn't say the negative parts. He's got a lot of negative left. But, they filtered out a lot of the dangerous parts that would kind of run off, right? Like anger and, deceit and greed and envy, that those things have all been kind of filtered away from him. So, yeah, I mean, you could say that it's not really – it's one of those things that we get the luxury of saying we take this from the Halo universe, we don't take that. And right. I'll just say that rampancy is not an issue for church. It's not – it's important, I think, to Halo because it then gives a device for those characters to kind of twist and turn.
Right.
It's not like it's – at least as far as I know, the Halo device is not really based on anything in science that AIs break down after a certain period of time. It's an interesting concept, but it's not one that, like I said, that we have the luxury of cherry picking. It's not one that we cherry picked from the Halo universe. But at the same time, I did have to write something that seemed like if someone wanted to argue this way or that way, at least I've got an explanation for how it works. And if somebody else wants to explain a different way that fits, that's perfectly fine to me. But I have in my own head my rationale for that.
Sure. And then my last question with AI, I promise. In Out of Mind, Delta is talking about the spontaneous ejection from, a host. It causes catastrophic, problems to the psyche of an agent, and then goes on to start to talk about Wyoming and Gamma. Why did Gamma spontaneously eject from Wyoming?
He was just talking about the removal of how these freelancers and the AI become almost codependent on each other.
Right.
And they're all different too. All the AI are different. Like Delta is a rare one, and he's a break off of a good aspect of a personality. And the reasoning behind that is that if you have the alpha and it breaks down, and you have a multiple personality disorder, why would it break off its logic? Why would that be a way it would protect itself? It's because it doesn't want to figure out what's happening to it. It wants to dumb itself down a little bit. So that it doesn't have it can't figure out the full horror of what's being done to it. Same way, in a normal personality, you have a child. There's a childlike AI in Reconstruction. You can hear it very clearly. Just like in multiple personalities, there's usually a childlike personality. There's a very angry, authoritative personality, and so I just use that as the basis for a lot of these AI fragments. And then Delta would be an example, a very rare example of a good, decent one that was broken off. But for reasons that make sense to me. So, to answer your question is that they become, they become codependent on this. Alice and Omega being a great example of that is that they're extremely codependent on one another, and they feed off of one another. There's some other reasons there too, but that's if you have something that's it makes you wrathful all the time, you get a lot of power from that. And so to have that taken away from you is it's I don't know how to explain it. It's like jumping into cold water. You know what I mean? It's mentally, it's a way you're suddenly brought down to a different level. It's not like the level that you're brought down to is an unhealthy level. You're coming down from an unhealthy level that you've just been striding on. It'd be almost like running at a full sprint for 400 yards and then just standing still. That would be a hard process. You have to walk it off.
Right. It was the implication that Delta gave was that there was a reason that Gamma removed himself from Wyoming, and I was just wondering what that reasoning was.
That's more a device actually to explain that the AI is independent of the freelancer and can act on its own. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
And it also ties in. We never revealed. We never revealed that their AI were together. That Reginald and Gary Gamma were together. And that was another device to further tie them together because Gary was this other separate entity that was working with Church and had a plot with Church and was working with Wyoming. And it wasn't until all of a sudden at the end you realized that Gary and Wyoming are tied together. And that Gary is Gamma.
Right.
Remember, he was Gary the Lying Computer for 3 seasons. So.
Yes.
Very good. I hope that answers all your questions.
No, but I won't be. I'll be nice and stop there.
That's what the thread is for.
That's right.
I appreciate that. Hey, Recreator, what else we got?
All right, let's see. I think I wanted to ask a question about EMPs quickly.
Okay.
And then after that, let's see. I think.
Hold on 1 second. Just before you ask,
yep.
EMP. Just for the record, I think this has been established, or has that been retconned this season?
EMP. It stands for electromagnetic pulse.
EMP, dude.
It's spelled EMP, sir.
Go ahead. Go on.
I'm right. You're wrong. End of story. All right, but yeah, if these Spartan suits are supposed to be shielded from EMPs, EMPs, and Wash knew that, why did he use it to defeat the meta?
You mean the suits themselves, or they were supposed to protect the AI, in other words?
Yeah.
I think the debate was whether or not the EMP would kill the freelancers themselves, and there's no reason why it would. There's no reason why an EMP. I mean, it could essentially lock down their armor, and they'd be stuck there, and that didn't happen. I'm not going to have in the storyline. I'm not going to have. This is the thing too. There always has to be some kind of. I don't want to go through these long narrative explanations on how the meta and Washington were discovered in the basement, trapped in these coffin armor that were on lockdown because they had been shut down by the EMP. So as a narrative efficiency, I've got to have a way to get them out of there. But the EMP device was specifically designed to take out these AI. That's what its purpose was. That's what the purpose in the story was. And then also within the story itself, that's why they would have built it. The director of Project Freelancer was doing stuff that was outside the normal bounds of what should be done with AI. He was intentionally, knowingly violating rules that were set up for AI. He was entrusted with getting one, and then immediately went to work violating all the rules on his side of the agreement. So essentially the EMP was not a fail-safe device in case the project went wrong. It was, you have to think of it like a hacker who, if the cops come, he can hit a button and wipe everything on his hard drive. So it's essentially a big degausser, and so it was designed to wipe out the AI, which is why it was very important.
Incriminating evidence.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly, getting rid of the incriminating evidence. So it's for his benefit, not necessarily for the benefit of mankind if one of these AI goes nuts, and they need to shut down. That wasn't the purpose of it. The purpose of it was to protect him. And then Wash uses it to wipe out.
He would have specifically then designed the armor to leave the AI vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get down to the core science, yeah, they probably should have. The freelancer troops should have shown up, and there should have been Agent Maine and Agent Washington, locked in their armor and unable to move, and then we would have had to write an entire thing where Agent Maine and Agent Washington get out. But it's just. It's one of those things in storytelling, and I hate to make it seem like, we're avoiding things, but that's not that interesting a story to tell. It's a device to get them out of there. Once we set off the EMP, it destroys the AI, and we kind of have to bend the rules a little bit in order not to spend our time explaining everything to the utmost degree. We're not lost. We don't get an hour. We don't get 22 hours a season. We essentially have 1 hour a season, so we have to take some liberties.
All right.
And it's also important, that's why they had to get Epsilon.
And I'm guessing
that's what the race was at the end of Reconstruction, was to get Epsilon well outside the range of the EMP. Also, there was a thing in there too where somebody said that I don't understand what an EMP is because Sarge built an EMP weapon, and that's not what it means. That's not all me not understanding. That's Sarge not understanding what an EMP is. He got inspired by this electromagnetic pulse. So then he built the Gauss cannon, but being an idiot, he designed it in such a way that it stalls the Jeep because he thinks that's part of the process. So that's where the whole Gauss cannon comes from. It's like I understand what an electromagnetic pulse is, and that it's not going to propel projectiles. Sarge doesn't understand it. He just gets inspired by this, and with his lousy science, he creates this Gauss cannon that, by the way, also shuts off all the vehicles. That it's with a 4-foot radius of.
Let's see. I wanted to get a little bit more into the AI science before we move from that topic. when you've got the fragment AIs moving from suit to suit, floating out on the radio waves, like I think it was episode 31 with Omega just sort of drifting away.
Yes.
What keeps them powered? What keeps them active?
Well, these really are fragments. They're not full AI. So they're not entire personalities. They don't have the entire structure that a normal AI would. That's why they're very one-sided, all of them. Omega, super one-sided, right? And Delta is too. Deltas, when you run into them, they're all kind of one note. And so they're meant to be smaller. And my justification for that was that would give them the ability to transfer. And one thing that's a big long explanation is, and really it's probably the main reason why this whole freelancer thing came about, is trying to justify why the guys in Blood Gulch Canyon have these suits of armor. I mean, why do these idiots have these, what are essentially the Project Manhattan devices of the Halo universe? How do they have them? And so in trying to justify that, that's actually the thought process that led to the whole storyline of Freelancer. And so that's what I did. And I feel a little vindicated by the Halo storyline in that Cortana is a massive AI that can run an entire ship, and the superintendent is an AI, ODST that is housed in a massive complex under a city. But when the AI goes into a Spartan suit, it's on a little chip. You know what I mean? That they just plug into the back of their head. So I think there's some justification for that in the Halo universe.
Well, let's see. I think I might have missed a little bit of a detail of that question. What about when they're just hanging in the open airways? When Church is sort of floating around as a ghost? For that matter, what does he see when he's moving from person to person as a ghost?
Well, if you look at Valhalla, they have, which was a freelancer outpost, they have that big antenna on the side. These things are set up. These arenas essentially are set up for these experiments. And so there's going to be some kind of infrastructure that you don't see to support the AI to monitor these experiments. So there's some of that, but once again, we go back to this as a storytelling device. We want to do the reveal of Doc accidentally turning on his radio. If Doc turns on his radio in the middle of O'Malley jumping from person to person while they're all shutting off their radios, you could do it. You could set it that they all shut off their radios, and then we find out Doc had his on. But it's a cooler moment as a story to see that Omega's about to be defeated, and then someone makes a mistake, zip goes to him. It's not meant to be. This is the exact science of how this works. This is Red versus Blue, and it's a web series, and this is a cooler way to tell that story. And it really is, and I appreciate everybody in the LFTO thread. It really is cool that you guys can go down to the smallest moment in the series and analyze how it fits in. But there are definitely going to be some things that this is not intended to be a reveal of any kind of mechanism that runs this universe. It really is just for laughs or just for a cool moment in the series sometimes. And I do my best, and I hope I succeed more than I fail. I do my best at trying to honor the overall storyline. But I've always said that I won't sacrifice something like a good joke for something else like continuity.
Well, let me jump in here real quick, and I want to harken back to a question I asked you at RvBTO. I guess it'll be 2.5 years ago, I suppose, where you actually, that's right about when you ended the regular Blood Gulch Chronicles, and you're saying one of the reasons you ended it was because the series was sort of collapsing under its own weight. And then, here we are 2.5 years later, and you're continuing the storyline in many ways. What made that decision come about?
Well, there was one conversation I had where I could have very well walked away from Red vs. Blue after season 5 and gone to do something new. But I felt like the pieces that I laid out there, no one was picking up from season 5 about why were Texas and Wyoming talking about winning the war? Nobody really cared about that, and I always thought, well, maybe I didn't explore that enough. And then I was talking about I said to a buddy of mine who's a moderator on the site, his name is Flash 2000. He's a filmmaker. And I said, I had this other story. I'm thinking about doing this. And then there were some other projects we were working on. And I said, and I kind of would like to go back and do this, tell some more of the story of Red versus Blue. And he says, well, why don't you do it? I said, it's been 5.5 years. Maybe it's time to do something else. He said very clearly to me, he said, there's people that watch this show, and they like this show a lot. And there's a lot of people out there in the world who are trying to get a show that people are interested in and people want to see. And you've got that. He goes, so just keep that in mind. And then I went home and I thought about it. I go, he's absolutely right. And so I started writing Reconstruction probably 2 or 3 days after that. And it was just that conversation of just a friend who, gives you some perspective. It's like, I had finished Blood Girls Chronicles. I thought, I want to do some more of this. And luckily we'd left a little loophole for ourselves saying we were ending the main series. And so came up with the idea of the trilogy of what we wanted to do. It probably started as a sequel, and I turned it into a trilogy over time. But that's basically what happened with that. Once I started rolling on Reconstruction, I kind of couldn't stop. I mean, I had a lot of fun making Reconstruction, and I'm in the same kind of frame of mind right now going into this next one. So I'm really excited about it. And the basic question to me is, when we finish with Resolution, where do we go from there? And we just revisit it, But I'm not big into saying over. I'm not big into saying ending anymore because it doesn't matter because we're not TV and we're not movies, We can literally make this for as long as people want to watch it, and that Bungie and Microsoft are okay with us doing it, And we've already proven that we can do this while we're doing other stuff. So I don't feel like I have to stop this in order to do anything else. And whether there'll be, serial storylines, small miniseries, or just PSAs, I think we'll be making Red versus Blue for the foreseeable future, and perhaps some of the unforeseeable future.
Very cool. Now, in a perfect world, that's the perfect place to take off. But I do want to give Recreator one more chance to sort of get the questions across. We'll give it a few more minutes, I think.
Sure.
Actually, I've been waiting to ask a question for a while. Is it all right if I jump in here?
By all means, go for it.
All right. Hi, Burnie. This is Daft again.
Hey.
I've just been thinking on the production side of things. The recent seasons of Red vs. Blue have been filled with a lot of really inventive tricks that you've used in the creation engine for Halo 3 Forge, like how you got the meta to lift up the Warthog. You used a piece of the set or whatever, and I'm just wondering which scenes have been your favorite to film, and how did you set them up?
A lot of it harkens back to just the experimenting with Halo 3. We jumped into Halo 2 right away because Bungie gave us the opportunity to get Halo 2 early. And, I mean, at the time, Halo 2 was the biggest thing ever when it came out, And, Halo 3 was even bigger now. But, when Halo 2 came out, we were just like, wow, we get a chance to look at Halo 2 early and to make a video the week before it comes out, and be able to show Halo 2 to everybody, the whole world. So we jumped on that opportunity. And while I really appreciate that that was extended to us, I kind of wish that we hadn't done that for the sake of, just taking the time to explore the engine, because a lot of machinima in our writing comes from just walking around in that universe and just seeing stuff like, oh, here's a crashed Pelican. What can we do with that? Hey, look at this wall here. There's this etching on the wall. How did that get there? And it's part of the fun of Red vs. Blue, I think, is explaining how things got where they are on the maps. I was kind of like, it's kind of a weird ulterior motive of Red versus Blue is to try to make people think when they're playing multiplayer, oh, here's that rifle that was dropped by so and so, and that's why it's placed there on the map. So in Reconstruction, we didn't do that. Halo 3 came out. We ended Season 5 the summer before Halo 3 came out. Halo 3 came out, and then Reconstruction started the following May. We had about 6 or 7 months of just experimentation with Halo 3, and I think it paid off. I mean, I'm very happy with Reconstruction. And if we'd have jumped right in with Halo 3 right out of the gate, I don't think it would have turned out that way. And I think part of the reason why we felt that with Halo 2 that we had to do that was, as soon as we started making Red vs. Blue, there was all of a sudden all this competition for Halo Machinima. And we knew at Halo 2, first week, people were going to be coming out with other series. They were going to try to be the Halo 2 Machinima series, whereas Red vs. Blue was the Halo 1 Machinima series, that everybody watched. And when Halo 3 came out, we didn't really feel like that. We weren't worried anymore. We were very happy with what we'd done, and we thought, well, we'll sit back. We'll see if somebody else can come up with something really cool in Halo 3, and, we'll watch that, and then we'll make something cool a year from now, and then, that's what we decided to do. You nailed it, though. I mean, I love the scene where Meta picks up the Jeep, and, Griff's running by the door, and the Jeeps are chasing after him.
Yeah.
Even in that scene, Nate, God bless him, he had to paint out all the blue dots. He had to paint out all the blue dots from Forge. And we later learned that if we'd have just set up the game a little differently, we could have turned off all the blue dots. As simply as making the camera box not be a monitor. But we had the camera box be the monitor because it was dragging. He was the one dragging around all the Jeeps and all that stuff. So yeah, that's kind of rough.
That reminds me. Before I forget, do you guys still use a director character when filming Red vs. Blue?
We do. And in fact, at the end of Recreation, we discovered something new about the Halo 3 engine. Normally what we do is Jeff will set up the boxes. He'll take the red box and the blue box, and he'll set up the scene. And then the director box will join the game, and then we'll shoot the scene and we'll leave. The reason why we do that is if the director box is in the game during setup, we have to fast forward through all that, and it kind of sucks. Because Halo only fast forwards at double speed. So if you take 10 minutes to set up a shot, you're guaranteed you're going to have 5 minutes of fast forwarding, just sitting there watching, everybody get in a position. The problem is that if the director joins a game late, he's not the host. And we've recently found out that even in local system link, there's a lot of advantages to being the host. Not gameplay advantages, although there are some. They just don't pertain to Machinima production. But there's also graphical advantages. You can't get certain death animations if you're not the host. Specifically the one that CT does when Church blasts him, or I should say Epsilon blasts him, where he falls to his knees and falls forward. If you're not the host, you don't get that. All you get is this weird, spin around kind of pirouette death, the one that Donut does when he passes out inside a blue base. And so it's nice to kind of figure things out after all this time. Also, the lighting is different. The way the game applies lighting to the characters. If you go back and look at the shot of CT and CT and Tucker, specifically in the shot when he's hit by Church's laser face, you'll notice that CT's coloring is way amped up, and Tucker even looks a little bit off color. It's because the lighting is super intense on them, and CT has all this flare on him. He almost looks gray instead of being brown. He's got so many highlights on him, so you might want to freeze from that and take a look at it. But I'm trying to think, I also like we figure out really simple stuff that you can do in game. That's cool. When we discovered leader traits and when we had Meta change colors, I think in episode 3 of Reconstruction, that's all done pretty much in game with just one small transition of video editing. I like doing that stuff a lot more than I like, say, making a character like the counselor who talks, because that's entirely done in post-production. It's very cool, but there's something kind of neat about putting all the heavy lifting on the engine, on the game, because that's kind of the point of Machinima. If we do too much of that counselor talking stuff, we may as well just make a 3D action cartoon, right?
Of course.
All right, Bernie, may I ask you a question, or?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Well, it seems like the storyline's going pretty intensive on the blue side. Is the red side ever going to get a little bit more in depth on the characters? If not so much. No, not in this trilogy. This one is definitely more about wrapping up the stuff with Church and Tex. We made Relocated specifically about the Reds, and the first half of Recreation about the Reds, but it was just kind of the antics. It's red versus blue, and the red guys get top billing, but if you look at the story with Church and the freelancers and all that, I mean, they really kind of are supporting characters in the story line. But I mean, I think they have the funniest characters over there. I mean, Griff and Sarge are hilarious, and then Griff and Simmons as a pair are great. It's nice to have Tucker and Caboose back together to play off each other now that Church is gone. But I would think the dynamics of the red team are so much funnier, so they end up being more the comedy relief in the series. But not really. There's some relationship resolutions, that we have kind of written down. But as far as arcing storylines, not any plans right now to do it. I'm not saying we couldn't do it, but I think that the stuff we're doing with the Blues is enough of a departure that if we started doing that stuff with the Reds, it might. This is a very specific audience. LFTO likes this kind of stuff. You guys really don't get exposed as much as I do to the people who do not like this stuff. They don't like it. They just want the dumb antics. They want the guy standing at the top of the cliff, yelling at the guy on the base and shooting at him with the sniper rifle and missing him. Like that to them. That's what Red versus Blue is. And I agree. I mean, I think it's all different parts, but that's what they focus on, and they're very clear when they tell me, you don't understand what your show's about. Likewise, I'm sure there's many people in LFTO who are like, what the fuck is this recreation thing? It's like where are they going with this? What's happening? And it's because it's kind of a nod back to the original Blood Gulch stuff.
All right, thank you very much. It's funny. We have actually been hearing a lot from the other half of the Red versus Blue fan base lately. All the people who actually accuse us of ruining the show.
Well, I mean, Reconstruction was well underway, like you said, when the LFTO group started. So, and I mean, I have said many times, my favorite series in Red versus Blue, my favorite seasons are Season 1, Season 3, and Reconstruction. And Reconstruction is definitely Season 1 and Reconstruction are about on par with me. But Season 1 has a lot of emotional stuff to it too, because it was crazy whirlwind. You know what I mean? And we had no idea that things were going to take off the way they did. And it was like suddenly there was all these people watching something that I was writing on a weekly basis. So it's kind of hard to separate that from anything else. So you can defend yourselves in a way by saying that I like Reconstruction a lot.
Well, I should probably say I like Reconstruction a lot, and I did actually. I enjoyed it. I had the DVD. It's something I wasn't really able to appreciate until I sat down and watched it all in one piece. Because when it's fragmented, like an AI, if you will, it's harder to understand. See what I did there? I thought that was pretty clever.
Yeah,
I saw that Ms.
good job.
I saw that Ms. Zara had asked some questions in here. I'm not sure if those were addressed or not. Recreator, you want to take those off, or?
Which one?
I think the one about the healing unit. Do we get that one?
I asked him that at PAX. Most of those questions.
Well, maybe we should get it on record here.
All right.
On record.
Oh boy. Yeah, we are still recording.
We've gotten into legal shit now.
My year of law school will serve me very well.
So what was it about the healing unit? Because I'm not sure I even entirely remember the question that was asked at PAX. You talking about your healing unit?
It was just me complaining about if the healing unit saved Wash, why didn't it save York?
Oh, well, I mean, it's like
you've already answered that.
Yeah, which is pretty much, if a first aid kit can save one person, why can't it save another, right?
Right.
So it's just different levels of wounds,
It was just a nod to all the people who loved York desperately and cried when he died.
Yeah, trust me. York is one of my favorite characters. We talked about Dexter earlier. He's the guy Sean Dugan, who voiced York, is the guy who played Dexter in the movie I made in college with Matt. That it was Joel and Sean who they were in that movie together. They played Grim Reapers. The schedule is a story about a guy who Joel plays him, who gets out of college essentially, and he goes to get a job. And he gets a job as an assistant to a powerful man. He finds out he's working for the Grim Reaper, and he has to go to deaths and monitor and make sure everything goes okay. And Dexter's the other guy who works there, who's a guy from the 50s with a big pompadour. And the guy who plays York was a rockabilly singer, and he's got a huge personality, which doesn't really come across in York at all. But he's a great. Probably one of the best natural actors I've ever met in my entire life. Is the guy who plays York, and I don't know. I really like York too because he was the first guy, to me, outside the series. Even though Wyoming was there, York was very encapsulated. He was kind of a touchstone to a much bigger thing, and introduced Delta. And it's always nice to come across. When you introduce a new character to say Sister or Vic or Wyoming. It's different than introducing something like York and Delta together as a team, and you get a sense that they're doing their own thing, and you're just going to kind of come across them, and then that's it, And that's one of the things I really like with some of the freelancers is that we don't spend much time with them, but you get the feeling there's a whole other thing going on there, and I would really like to explore that more. But I don't really know that the audience has an attention span for it.
Speaking of which, go ahead.
If I could just point out a really quick, very, very sad oversight is that Sean is not on the cast list on the website.
Yeah, you're right. He's not. Is Mark on there? The guy who plays Delta?
Yeah, he is on there. York's is not. And another oversight is your events page has exactly one event on it, and it's PAX 2008.
That's awesome. Well, Gus wants that.
Still going to attend that one?
We got to fix that, yeah, because Gus runs that. That's horribly maintained. You know, a lot of stuff got pushed.
Totally
a lot of stuff got pushed to the bottom of the new design, and we got to do a better job of maintaining that stuff. I blame Gus.
Well,
I will fix the Sean oversight on the cast list.
Yeah.
In any case, speaking of short attention spans, we're coming up on 2 hours. The Recreator, I'm gonna let you pick one more question to ask Burnie on behalf of LFTO.
One.
Okay, fine, 3.
Let's see. I want to try to get other people in as much as possible. Is M the Renegade in this chat by any chance? She had some questions about.
I remember her saying now she wasn't able to make it. Sorry for not updating that. Daft fails.
No problem. I do feel bad. Do we get coming close to getting everyone's questions?
Yeah, we're pretty close to the end. I think.
Well, Recreator also walked me around Comic-Con for about 50 minutes and asked a bunch of questions too. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to flag them down.
We actually have some overlap in here about that. Like, there's some questions we had. Or it seems like CT is becoming a really popular topic in the chat. Also, cartoons and Hollow Donut. But there's so many other questions.
And what donut? Hollow Donut?
There's a theory going around out there that the donut that was shot in Chapter 19 of Recreation was holographic.
Nope. I mean, I would love to hear the reasons why that is, and it'd be interesting to hear the justification for that. I can tell you, no, that's donut. That was shot. And one of the things, what you saw for Recreation was not actually the original script. In the original script, I mean, this is a sudden turn. There's a very Reconstruction moment that happened at the end of Recreation. The original script, when we actually shot it, was that Washington came in, shot Donut, and shot Lopez and shot Donut, and then we go back to his interview with the chairman, and I said, there's going to be a portion of the audience that thinks when we go back to Washington that it's not a flashback, that's going back to what is real time, and that Washington was imagining everything that took place, that Washington basically imagined the last half of Recreation, and we're going to have to worry about it. So I wrote a scene, and we shot a scene in which he comes back to Valhalla. When I say the story comes back to Valhalla and picks up where Simmons is yelling, trying to revive Donut, and Wash and Meta further threaten Simmons. But that was essentially it. There was no justification for that scene other than the fact than to circumvent people's confusion. And we just decided, you know what? Let's not dumb down the last moment so that people won't misunderstand it, because it's the internet, and you're never going to write something that everyone understands. There's always going to be some people who are like, what? Well, it's amazing. Not that the Hollow Donut is that. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that we came back in that last moment. We came back because we didn't want to confuse people, and there is no Hollow Donut thing. There is no. It's really him. He was really off on doing his own adventure, working for Project Freelancer, which is important. That he was working for Project Freelancer after he got removed from Blood Gulch, made his way to Sand Trap, and then came back after he heard the distress signal and heard the message from Tucker, and came back and went to Valhalla. So that is Donut. That is the character.
The nice thing about a series like Red vs. Blue is, similar to Church, while you can't bring Donut back, certainly can bring back, his cousin, Boston Cream.
Yeah, exactly right. Bring back Bear Claw or something like that.
Yeah, his Uncle Danish.
Yeah. But the nice thing is we don't have to tell a story at the same point in time. You know what I mean? We can go back and tell a story in the middle, like what the adventures of Donut, as he went off after Blood Gulch. We can't include some characters because they would have said, "Oh yeah, I was with Donut when he did that." But we can certainly do something with him if we want to, and we can always have flashbacks too with Donut. Not everything is perfectly laid out. Not every moment is accounted for. So we have the ability to kind of tie things together.
Well, it's really rewarding to be able to look at this universe kind of grow and expand after having been with it, I guess in my case in Season 2, but in the case of most of the people on this call, maybe even earlier on, like many of them from the beginning. So, Burnie, I want to thank you for
I actually joined 5 episodes into Reconstruction, so kind of a new
then all kinds of different points. We're picking up people at every stop on the turnpike.
There you go.
But
all right.
LFTO, thank you guys so much, Recreator, for coordinating with me and all the callers from Let's Figure This Thing Out. I think we had a pretty good show here.
All right, LFTO, thanks, Burnie, for taking all of our questions.
Well, thank you for doing it on me. I appreciate it.
Oh, and Burnie, thanks so much. You're here on the show at least once a year, it seems. But hopefully we'll be hearing from you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all take it easy. I really appreciate it.
But next week, tune in because we have AJ Dallario from Deadspin.com, the sports kind of funny making news site that kind of pokes fun at these spoiled millionaires and billionaires with all these personality conflicts that we follow. AJ is also a Philly native, so I'm sure we'll be talking baseball next week. So those of you not so into sports, maybe take next week off. But, there is internet stuff in there, too, so I think you might get something out of it. And in 2 weeks, we have Lukey and Microbe and Adandant, the new planners of RvBTO, and we're going to talk about RvBTO in 2 weeks. Until next week, this has been JG Edithel, reminding you to help control the pet population. Won't you please have your pets spayed or neutered? Thank you, good night, and stay tuned for the Buttcast.